In the summer of 1841, New York City witnessed a crime so brutal and mysterious that it would inspire Edgar Allan Poe himself to pen one of literature's first detective stories. But the real case of Mary Rogers contained horrors far more disturbing than any fiction could capture. Before we start, hit subscribe to stay connected with mysterious discoveries. It was July 28, 1841, in the bustling metropolis of New York City, where the Hudson River carried both commerce and secrets through its dark waters. The city's population had swelled to over 300,000 souls, creating a maze of crowded streets where a person could vanish without a trace. Mary Cecilia Rogers had been missing for 3 days when her body was discovered floating near the shore of Hoboken, New Jersey. The 21-year-old woman had worked as a clerk in Anderson's tobacco shop on Broadway, where her striking beauty and charming manner had made her something of a local celebrity. Newspapers had dubbed her the beautiful cigar girl, and her disappearance had already captured the city's morbid fascination. The discovery of her corpse transformed curiosity into horror. Her body bore unmistakable signs of violent struggle and sexual assault. Deep ligature marks encircled her neck, suggesting strangulation with a piece of her own clothing. Most disturbing were the systematic injuries covering her torso, wounds that spoke of prolonged torture rather than a crime of passion. Dr. Richard Cook, the examining physician, documented details so graphic that several newspapers refused to print his full report. The woman's face had been beaten beyond recognition. Her hands showed defensive wounds where she had fought desperately against her attackers. The condition of her clothing suggested she had been dragged through rough terrain before being dumped in the river. But it was the arrangement of evidence around the crime scene that began to suggest something beyond ordinary murder. 3 days after the body's discovery, a search party found what appeared to be the location where Mary Rogers had met her end. Deep in the woods, near Weehawken, investigators discovered a clearing where the ground had been disturbed and stained with what appeared to be dried blood. Scattered around the area were pieces of Mary's clothing, torn and arranged in a peculiar manner that defied explanation. Her silk scarf had been tied to a tree branch exactly 7 feet from the ground. Her bonnet lay precisely in the center of the clearing, undamaged despite the violence that had occurred. Most puzzling was her parasol, found standing upright in the soft earth as if deliberately planted there. The investigation revealed that Mary Rogers had left her mother's boarding house on the morning of July 25th, telling her she was going to visit her aunt in James Street. But no aunt lived at that address, and no one in the neighborhood had seen the young woman that day. Her fiancé, Daniel Payne, she had planned to spend the day with him, but witnesses placed him at work throughout the afternoon. As police questioned potential witnesses, a disturbing pattern emerged. Multiple residents near the waterfront reported hearing prolonged screaming from the direction of the woods on the night of July 25th. The cries had lasted for over an hour, rising and falling in intensity, yet no one had investigated. When pressed for details, these witnesses described the sounds as unlike any human voice they had ever heard. More troubling were the accounts of several ferry operators who worked the Hudson River crossing. 3 different boatmen reported seeing a group of well-dressed men boarding the evening ferry from Hoboken on July 26th, carrying what appeared to be a large bundle wrapped in canvas. The men had paid triple the normal fare and insisted on standing at the boat's stern, away from other passengers. One ferry operator, Thomas Walsh, provided details that would haunt investigators for decades. He described how the men had lowered their bundle into the water just before reaching the New York shore, watching it sink beneath the dark surface. When Walsh questioned their actions, one of the men had turned toward him, and the ferry operator swore the stranger's eyes reflected light like an animal's in the darkness. The mystery deepened when police discovered Mary Rogers' connection to a secret society that had been operating in New York's underground circles. Documents found in her boarding house room revealed her involvement with a group calling itself the Order of the Crimson Veil. This organization appeared to be studying what they termed supernatural phenomena, conducting experiments that bordered on the occult. Among Mary's personal effects, investigators found a leather journal filled with her handwriting. The entries described attending meetings in abandoned buildings where members performed rituals involving animal sacrifice and blood ceremonies. The final entry, dated just 2 days before her disappearance, contained a single disturbing line: "They have chosen me for the final test." Dr. Cook's examination revealed additional evidence that challenged conventional understanding of the case. Embedded in the victim's fingernails were fragments of what appeared to be human skin, but laboratory analysis showed cellular structures unlike anything in medical literature. The tissue samples exhibited properties that suggested they had been preserved by some unknown chemical process, remaining fresh despite obvious age. More disturbing was the discovery of a substance found in Mary Rogers' stomach content. The unknown compound appeared to be organic in nature, but contained elements that did not exist in any known botanical or mineral sources. When exposed to heat, the substance emitted a phosphorescent glow that lasted for hours after the flame was removed. The investigation took an even darker turn when other young women began disappearing from the same area of the city. Between August and October of 1841, 4 more females vanished without explanation. All had been attractive, all had worked in public-facing positions, and all had been seen speaking with well-dressed strangers shortly before their disappearances. Police found evidence linking these vanishings to the same location where Mary Rogers had been murdered. Search teams discovered additional clearings in the Weehawken woods, each showing signs of violent struggle. In every location, personal items had been arranged in the same inexplicable pattern: clothing tied to tree branches at precisely 7 feet height, undamaged accessories placed in the center of the disturbed ground. The breakthrough came when investigators discovered the abandoned headquarters of the Order of the Crimson Veil in a basement beneath a Manhattan warehouse. The space had been fitted with strange apparatus that appeared designed for medical procedures, but served no recognizable scientific purpose. Tables bore stains that testing confirmed as human blood, and walls displayed charts mapping what appeared to be anatomical studies of the human nervous system. Most chilling was a collection of preserved specimens found in glass containers throughout the laboratory. The jars contained organs that appeared human but exhibited abnormal characteristics. Hearts showed additional chambers, brains displayed unusual lobes, and several specimens contained structures that did not correspond to any known human anatomy. Documents recovered from the site revealed the Order's true purpose. They believed they could achieve immortality by transferring consciousness between human bodies. Their experiments required live subjects, preferably young females whose life force they considered most suitable for their procedures. Mary Rogers had not been a random victim, but a carefully selected participant in their grotesque research. The final piece of evidence emerged when police arrested Dr. Mordecai Rothschild, the Order's leader, at his private residence. In his study, investigators found detailed records of every experiment conducted by the organization. Mary Rogers' case file contained photographs of her injuries that had been taken before her death, proving that her torture had been systematic and scientifically documented. But the most disturbing discovery was a series of letters written in Mary's handwriting, dated after her supposed death. The correspondence described her experiences as a conscious observer, trapped within another person's body, unable to control her actions but aware of everything happening around her. The letters contained intimate details about her life that only Mary Rogers could have known. Dr. Rothschild died in police custody before he could stand trial, found in his cell with his throat torn open by what appeared to be animal claws. The medical examiner could not explain how such wounds had occurred in a locked room or why the prisoner's body showed signs of extreme age, despite his documented birth records indicating he was only 32 years old. What do you think really happened to Mary Rogers in those final hours before her body was found floating in the Hudson River? Subscribe to explore more cases where documented history collides with the impossible and reality itself becomes the greatest mystery of all.